Let's talk a little bit about this, like why now, why Jacksonville? When you mentioned the risk profile that you're seeing, what did you refer to?
So first, you just need to look at like Jacksonville as a whole. Okay, think about what's the culture in Jacksonville, what makes it great. First, it's located in Florida. All right, Florida is a very pro-business state. Okay, but no income tax. All right, so you have a benefit right there.
Yep.
Whether you live in Florida or you're in a different state, like just investing into the state of Florida, it's already like, hey, don't got to worry about income tax. Don't got to worry about filing a Florida tax return. Don't have to worry about that kind of compliance. That's already better ROI or return on investment. Then you look at next, you're like, what is Jacksonville like? All right, well, actually, Jacksonville is actually technically the largest city in Florida. Now it's because the whole county is the city, but 1 million people live in the city. Okay, I don't know what the most updated number is, but it's around $1 million. And then if you take the greater area, it's going to be way more than that. Okay, and Jacksonville itself, it's very pro business. Stuck right between I-10 and I-95. It's like I can go west, can't really go east too much, but it's great if you do because the beaches are right there too. You got the beautiful St. John's River downtown.
Yeah.
You got tons of area to grow. So
Yeah.
it's already right there for you, ripe for the picking. And then if you go now, like St. Johns County is the fastest growing county in the state of Florida.
Yeah.
If you don't know what it is, it's just south of Duval County, and it's kind of basically a suburb of
Yeah.
Jacksonville these days. A lot of people with their families like going out there. It's great schools, great suburb of it. It's basically still a part of the Jacksonville area. A lot of these people still go to Jacksonville and work downtown or work in the Jacksonville area. So it's already there. The land, yeah, the politics, the government's all behind you. And now it's just like, we need to grow. There's just all these policies in place. Actually, Greg could probably do a better job than I can about talking about this, about reviving downtown.
Oh, yeah.
There's the new stadium. There's the Four Seasons coming in. Okay. And so you have a lot of these things on the horizon, but real estate is slow moving. Okay. Real estate is, it's like, oh, 1 year from now, it's going to be completely different. But you look back at decades and you're like, whoa, Jacksonville is not what it used to be.
Yeah.
And you've seen this in other cities. You've seen this in Tampa. You've seen this in Nashville. 10 years ago, look at those cities and look now. It doesn't mean investing in those cities are not great, but if you could invest in it 10 years ago, it's much higher return. It's a way better investment. And you're in on it, and then you're in on the people there. It's like that's where I think Jacksonville will be in 10 years. It's already a great city, but it still has a pretty reasonable standard of living costs. You're talking about Miami. Miami has turned itself into probably one of the greater, one of the top tier cities in the state or in the country, online with like your Dallases and your LAs and your Chicagos and things like that. But it's very high cost of living and it's pretty landlocked.
Yeah.
So they have to build vertical. And not here in Jacksonville, you can build out as far as you want.
100%.
Yep.
And then we can worry about building vertical. So it's just, there's a lot of opportunity here. And then just take the standard market. We're talking about interest rates, interest rates are high and it kind of stopped the growth. I think we had pretty high growth, obviously. People were going 20+% every year. I mean, a couple of years ago, you double your investment and stuff. That slowed down, but it hasn't stopped growth. Growth is still, I think it's like 5%, somewhere in that area, 6%, still in real estate in Jacksonville. So even with all of that, so what happens when interest rates do go down? Well, all those people that are on the sideline thinking, I don't want to buy, are now going to buy. And now appreciation is going to happen. Prices are going to go back up because the moment everyone else thinks, all right, I want to buy, that is the mindset for everyone. So it's like right now when people are thinking, hey, I don't want to buy. Now you want to make sure your investment makes sense. You want to make sure cash flows, but rent has gone up. It's not as bad as people think it. It's just when you look at it in a small sample size of what housing costs a few years ago and what it costs now, you're like, oh my goodness. The reality is if you take back, you don't stop looking at the short-term historical data, look at the future and look where Jacksonville will be in 10 years. Look at the growth. Look how pro-business corporations are moving here. There's going to be a lot of high-paying jobs, people that need to rent places. There's going to be a lot of people with families needing, first-time places, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, the staple of the rental community, things like that. And it's like, I'm just very high on Jacksonville. Obviously, there's plenty of other places, and maybe I'm a little biased because I live here.
I don't think so, man. I don't think so.
I just think 10 years from now, buying right now, you're going to be like, I'm really glad I did.
I love it, man. I couldn't agree more, right? It's not hard to see it when you're here. And especially if you've shown up from out of town in the last 5 years, like myself,
Sure.
it's so easy to see that we are basically a cake that's about to get put in an oven right now. All the ingredients have been mixed and it all looks like it's about to come out delicious and it's all about to happen, right? This like quality of life. I call this thing Orange County, California 20 years ago, right? Like
Yeah.
with the weather and the beach lifestyle and the road trips and the nature all around us. I lived there in my 20s, right? It feels a lot like it. And everything that you said is accurate, right? Like plenty of upside that still feels like it's baked in, right, to blossom. There is the regulatory environment that is kind of like perfectly seasoned all the way around, right? Like
Yep.
the oven has been tweaked in a very, very nice way. And we see these perfect examples of, you said it, Tampa and Nashville, like feel like one-to-one examples of 10 years away.
Yeah.
And we all wish we would have bought there 10 years away. And I think that there's like one big through line that happened in those cities, GC, that I think you are particularly qualified to talk about.
We're talking about downtown here in Jacksonville. And, it is really wonderful to sit down with other professionals and other folks in the community here and have not just myself be excited about downtown Jacksonville, because for many years, that's what it was. I felt like we at JWB and myself, I was just pushing this boulder up a hill to help people see what a blank canvas we have in downtown Jacksonville and Jacksonville overall, how we have the public and private partnerships coming together and how we have things moving in this direction. But now I hear it quite often from people outside of myself. The thing here is that people talk about how can I make the best real estate investment? And oftentimes you hear, I want to be in the path of progress. Where's this next shopping center coming? Where's this next Publix supermarket coming? Because I want to buy a property right next to that. Well, I'm here to tell you the best path of progress you can find is find a city that's about to be revitalized.
Yeah.
And the data behind this shows that you see more median incomes rising, you see more jobs coming to that city, which brings more amenities to that city, which brings more people living downtown. And then what happens is the real estate investors who own properties in those areas that are right around that downtown area, the rents go up, the home prices can go up. And you know what? This can all be a win for everybody because median incomes went up as well. So people can afford it. And when you talk about what happened in Nashville, and you talk about what's happened in Tampa and Denver and Charlotte, well, there's already a roadmap for this. So it's so exciting because that's what we have going on in downtown Jacksonville right now. There's actual data. I'll give you some data behind it. Most people don't know this, but there's actually $4 billion of active construction going on in downtown Jacksonville. Downtown Jacksonville is only 3.9 square miles. So $4 billion is going on in downtown Jacksonville right now. And that doesn't even include the new Jacksonville Jaguar Stadium renovation, which just got approved by City Council yesterday, by the way. Pretty cool that we get to share that news here. That's a $1.4 billion stadium renovation deal. The reason why and the urgency about why we're so passionate about Jacksonville right now is because when you own real estate in an environment like we have here, it's going to follow the same path that you've seen in some of these other markets. It is the greatest way to supercharge your rates of return by buying now, before all of these buildings and stadiums and hotels are ready to receive all of these new people living and staying there. It's now. And so that's that big opportunity that we see. And one of the reasons that we're here today.
Yeah. So you mentioned it before too, right? Like this idea, it's the two, what I see as the why now opportunity is the intersection between we know that interest rates are not going to stay this high for this long, for too much longer. Once those drop, it accelerates home price appreciation. And we know we can almost set the clock. This feels really certain. Like you can, the statistic that we share on the show is really relevant, right? Like of how you can set the clock to when Jacksonville is going to like have this renaissance. We talk about this number of residents in an urban core being at 10,000. And once that happens, developer incentives go away and it becomes way easier to develop really cool stuff, right? Because all of a sudden Whole Foods is like, yeah, you want me to be your anchor tenant in a mixed use development? Sure, let's go, right? So, and Jacksonville, who forever felt like had been right around 3,000 residents in the last 10 years has now eclipsed 9,000 residents. And like you said, $4 billion coming already has the baked in 10,000 plus going to be happening in under 12 months, essentially.
100%.
Right. And then the data that you've done on the show is when these things happen, when a downtown comes from, I just come here to work and then I go home, right? 8-hour downtown, to I come here to live, work, play, and hang out all the time, 16-hour downtown, then the home price appreciation curve bends, right? It goes up significantly. And it's like buying that investment right before that hot tip. You know they're about to have that big product release and you're betting that it's going to work, right?
It feels like insider trading a little bit.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. I'm like, is this illegal? It's insider trading, but it's not.
It's not.
It really,
Yeah.
and it's really like there's a lot of potential upside here, but you got to get in it before you know it for fact. Because the time you know it for fact, everyone else is in on it. So that's where you get the most gain. But what I really like also about Jacksonville is there's potential upside, but the floor is also very high. No one talks about that. Like, all right, say it doesn't all work out like we think it's going to. All right, well, I guess I'm just going to still have a rental property that cash flows and gains appreciation of 5 to 6% every year. That's a terrible floor to have.